All right, this will be a video about Mae Brussell and more specifically the terrifying final days of her life. And if you don't know Mae Brussell, she was a well known researcher of political conspiracies and assassinations who had a weekly radio show that broadcast for 17 years from 1971 to 1988. And then the show ended in 1988 after she died in a pretty suspicious way. She was described as America's number one conspiracy theorist, whatever that word even means, but she wasn't just making random stuff up or throwing random crazy ideas out there. She claimed that she read 10 newspapers a day and she had this massive filing cabinet system of 37 filing cabinets with articles that she'd cut out of newspapers and books that she'd highlighted. All of it was arranged by topic, and she claimed that she'd read over 200 books on the JFK assassination alone. The JFK assassination was one of her main focuses, but she also went really big into researching just every major scandal and suspicious death from this era. Robert Kennedy, Martin Luther King, Watergate, Jonestown, just everything. She researched them all. And again, she's given this label as a conspiracy theorist, but pretty much everything she talked about was taken from newspapers and books and magazines. I'll just go ahead and read this part from MaeBrussell.com that kind of talks about some of the more interesting things about her career. On May 29th, 1968, Mae confronted Rose Kennedy at the Monterey Peninsula Airport and handed her a note telling her Robert Kennedy would soon be assassinated. A week later, he was shot to death at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles. Frank Zappa once gave her a computer for filing and cross indexing her research, but she never used it. In August of 1977, May discussed Jim Jones and the People's Temple's move to Guyana. She speculated that it might be a training camp for assassination teams, and this was more than a year before 913 members of the church were massacred. Her countless list of German and White Russian fascist fingerprints to President Kennedy's assassination reached its peak in May of 1988 when she discovered the name Adolf H. Schicklgruber handwritten in Marina Oswald's Notebook of Poetry in the Warren Commission exhibits, which Schicklgruber was the real last name of Adolf Hitler's father, Alois Schicklgruber. So to find the name Adolf H. Schicklgruber in Marina Oswald's notebook is pretty interesting. And this was always Mae Brussell's big kind of like thesis. She claimed that Nazis had gone underground after World War II to regroup, and they had infiltrated just a bunch of businesses and governments throughout the world, and they were the ones behind the JFK assassination and a whole bunch of other things that went on during this time. Then the last one here reads, much of May's March 29th, 1981 broadcast was spent discussing the power struggle within the Reagan administration and asked who would kill off their team members first. The following morning, President Reagan was shot in Washington, D.C., which this did happen too. She talked in a broadcast in March of 1981 how there was this massive power struggle going on behind the scenes after Ronald Reagan was elected, and that these groups were going to start killing off each other in a grab for power. Then a day later, there was an assassination attempt on President Reagan's life. Mae Brussell also had her life threatened in 1975 by Sandra Good of the Manson family because of her investigation into the Manson murders. Mae Brussell claimed that the Los Angeles Police Department was working with the Manson family to commit these murders. And John Lennon was a big Mae Brussell fan. He and Yoko Ono personally paid for the publication of an article that she'd written about the Watergate break-in. And that is just a small portion. It would just take a 9 million hour long video to cover all the assassinations and scandals that she talked about during the nearly 2 decades that she had a show. There was so much interesting stuff, but I wanted to focus this video on the mystery of her death in 1988. So, starting in late 1987, she started really researching the child care abuse scandal that was taking place at the Presidio Army base. And more specifically, she got into this child abuse case being linked to Satanism. The Presidio Army base was right in San Francisco, which Mae Brussell lived in the San Francisco area, so it was a local story, and she really went hard into it. And this Presidio case, if you're not familiar with it, it was just a horrible story where a whole bunch of children who attended a daycare at the Presidio Army base claimed that they'd been abused. Most of these children were very young. A lot of them had sexually transmitted diseases. It was reported that over 60 children had venereal diseases and showed signs of abuse. And these kids described just these awful things that they'd been forced to do as part of these satanic rituals. And again, this took place at a daycare that was on a military base. And the most startling thing about this case was that one of the people accused of heading up this abuse ring was Michael Aquino, who was a lieutenant colonel in the Army, and he had a top secret security clearance. And Michael Aquino was very open about the fact that he worshiped Satan. It wasn't some secret. He claimed that he was protected by the freedom of religion, and he was free to practice whatever religion he wanted to. He was previously a high-up member of the Church of Satan with Anton LaVey. Then he broke apart from that and he founded his own temple, and he named the Temple of Set. And he and his wife were the ones identified by children as two of the organizers of these rituals that the children had been forced to participate in. Mae Brussell first started talking about this Presidio case in November of 1987, so I'll just play a few clips from her broadcast when this story broke.
But this little girl was at the shopping center at the Presidio, and she recognized two people. And she told her parents, she's just 3.5 then, she's 4 now, that was Mickey, and the man was Mickey, and the woman was Shamby. And she grabbed her father by the legs and was very scared, and suggested that they did terrible things to her and took her off the base. Mickey and Shamby were Michael and Lilith Aquino. She said she recognized them, and she gave them details of where they took her and put her in a bathtub with animal figurations on the corner of the tub and an all-black room, and that she had been injected and taken off the Army base at the Presidio to Leavenworth Drive in San Francisco. And she described all 4 walls are black, and the men were dressed as women. Those were their capes, the satanic witchcraft capes, and the woman was dressed as a man. So a search warrant was given to go into the apartment, and there were the black walls, all black walls, and there was a cross over the ceiling, which she described, and the bathtub that she said she was put in, and the clothing of these people, the Michael and Lilith Aquino. And the matter stands right now that because she was taken from a military base to a home in San Francisco, that the San Francisco police have to prosecute. But the man she was taken to is very high up in the United States military.
Mae Brussell held call-in shows after her broadcasts, and after this first broadcast about the Presidio scandal, a caller phoned in with a lot of really startling details about his firsthand knowledge about this abuse network. So I'll just play his phone call. It's about 5 minutes long.
Hello, you're on the air.
Hello, Mae.
Yeah.
Yeah, to bring the matter that you've mostly discussed over your broadcast, and I thank you for it, a little closer to home, I'm going to have to go back to that Christy McManus I spoke of.
Oh,
she has been the center of, in the Monterey Bay Area, in Monterey and Santa Cruz counties, of a satanic child sacrifice molestation ring, although...
Where can we get material, as long as they're mentioning his name on the air? Tell me where I can get material that he's part of the satanic ring.
No, Christy, it's a woman.
Huh?
The Christy McManus is a woman.
Oh, it's a woman. Okay, yeah. Where? Yeah, and there's women very much involved. Where do we get...
I don't have anything written down for you. All I have is the experience of many people's observations.
Have any people gone to the police department?
Yes. As you pointed out earlier, the police and the DAs tend not to do anything, and in Santa Cruz County they pretty much haven't, although I've definitely outlined it for them and other higher authorities.
Okay. Do you know people... Hello?
I'm still here.
Do you know people that were involved or part of the satanic rituals? Do you know people actually who were part of it, taken as victims?
As victims?
Yes.
No, I don't know any victims that survived.
Okay, do you know the people who participated in it?
Yes, I do know I do know people who are participating in this with her.
Okay, can you send a list? Why would those people tell the police department that they're doing this? Hello?
I'm still here, yeah.
Why would they tell the police?
No, these were observers that were not a part of it, but were able to see, like myself, what was going on.
Oh, did they say at the yourself? Did you see this?
Yes, I've seen some of this with Christy McManus. Yes.
Oh, you were at her place?
At several of the places where she uses, yes.
Oh, if you were in a court of law, would you testify on it?
Yes, I certainly would.
Then can you describe some of the things you saw?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Yeah, she films children in sexual situations with her and her people. And
where does she get the children from?
She kidnaps them.
Okay.
Them kidnapped and shipped over state lines.
Okay.
And she works with that Gavin B. Becker down in Beverly Hills, and as I've said that over the air before, I believe, and she also works closely with Teague, a guy mentioned in the Soldier of Fortune magazines, and with G. Gordon Liddy.
Oh, my goodness. Can you write an outline? How do you know she works with a man from Soldier of Fortune?
This Teague, okay, from my research on her, Christy McManus, and G. Gordon Liddy, those three are united, and they're operating in the Central California Monterey Bay area.
Oh, my goodness. They're going to investigate. You know, the largest nursery school complex of little children is the military, and these children are abused all over. They don't have reports yet from children of Fort Ord that are at the daycare centers.
Yeah.
But the Central Americas had a large number of children that have been murdered and mutilated.
Yeah, well, Christy McManus, what she did is there was a woman, Jennifer McSheen Mills, she had murdered up in San Francisco. It was a very sensational murder. And, of course, they didn't catch the secret team of hers behind it, of course. Somebody took the fall for it on the front. But then Christy McManus has been involved in infiltrating military bases, including Fort Ord.
But see, maybe what I'm reading now is that they didn't infiltrate, they were part of it.
Yeah, well, infiltrate means she gets her people enlisted into the military, and then they come up in rank, and then they're in there, or she recruits people who are already there.
Oh, yeah, because the military is part of the Church of Seth, so that would make sense that they're part of it. Well, if you would...
Christy McManus is a Satan-worshipping priestess.
Okay.
And she came out of San Jose, but she spread down in the other areas that I mentioned.
Yeah, well, a lot of the Manson family had the nucleus in San Jose. Do you have a typewriter? Could you type up some of this for me? Or write it out?
I could definitely write it out and get it to you.
Okay, because I'm going to send a report, as I say, to the Armed Services Committee and to the San Francisco officials. There's a large network in Salinas and in this area. And it's very important that, as the button and the organization now is called Enough is Enough. Yeah.
Okay, well, I can say this over there also. What I did is I was back at Fort Meade, Maryland, the headquarters of military intelligence, and I talked with several people back there about this, and they said they would definitely do something about it.
Well...
And whether they will or not, but I told them that she also has aspects, she's a breakaway Satan worshiper, meaning her group is broken away from some of these other main nationwide groups.
But see, what they do, this is very important, is that Anton LaVey was in San Francisco Bay Area with the Mansons and with that group and his sacrifices and the naked women and all the rituals, okay?
He's living down here in Capitola now.
Yeah. He was. And then in 1975, up till 1975, say from 1971 to 75, Michael Aquino studied with Anton LaVey. He said the movie Rosemary's Baby just happened to turn him on, okay? Yeah. So he worked with LaVey. And then in 1975, he splinters and does his own group and has top secret security clearance. LaVey's in San Francisco, so they give birth. They have a training period like an apprenticeship and then give birth. And he felt LaVey wasn't kind enough to Satan, that he was selling material things, but that he recognizes and adores Satan. You understand?
Yeah.
So that the breaking off doesn't mean they're not the same. It just means that now we have an apprenticeship. It's time to be on our own.
Oh yeah, just multiplies it.
Multiply, exactly.
Yeah, just spread out. Yeah, because up here there's a large number of, there was a CIA station up here in Santa Cruz, and they were using a church as a front, and Christy McManus infiltrated and recruited and worked with a large group of those people, and they were the right-wing Nazi type of CIA agents.
Well, you see, this is what we heard at the conference yesterday, that a lot of this sexual activity takes place in churches.
Oh, yeah, the CIA has been using missionaries all over the world, Christian missionaries as a front. It's ideal for them.
Yeah, and in the United States, a lot of this is taking place in the church where these children are taken away from an ordinary daycare center that they think they're safe with on a military base and private care centers like the McMartin where the mutilation. One person, or one of the two that came up from the area of McMartin down there in California, Manhattan Beach, said it is the murder capital of the world, or the assault upon children, and there were literally, I forget how many, hundreds of children sexually assaulted there. There isn't one case of stopping them, and there's this network throughout the United States.
Yeah, McManus is networked in a lot of Christian churches. She's networked in there, and her people operate in there with these satanic activities with these children. As these churches, as a front, San Jose and Santa Clara and Santa Cruz counties are at center of it, and she's moved heavily into Monterey County.
Oh, really? Well, yeah, we'll have to make a map of the United States and put on, not make it, copy one, and put into these various places where it is being reported in the news, and I'm going to have to go through my articles that I saved and mark these places and get a report and say, why the Joint Chief of Staff are members of the Church of Set. Studying Mein Kampf and making decisions for wars such as like in the Persian Gulf when their goal is Armageddon.
Yeah, we are, but the main thing, I just thank you very much for letting me get the third or fourth time about the Christy McManus or Central Rural.
Well, now it's coming together because with all of this latest, when I read about the War College and degrees in mind control for 20 years and ejection of children like the Candy Jones story, then I think, hey, now it's time to really get, these top security clearances. These aren't the fringe group, this is the establishment. The knighthood is the establishment, so then it's time to put it all together. Thank you for calling, and keep in touch and write up some of these details for me.
Yeah, I'll get back with you.
P.O. Box 22511, Carmel, California, Mae Brussell, and write up some of that for me so that I know some of the details and I can have it checked out if I can.
Oh, sure enough.
Thanks.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
She also talked about the military links to Satanism in this Presidio case and talked of the military satanic links to other murder cases that she'd covered in the past. And she also speculated about the thousands of children who'd gone missing nationwide being linked to this network.
Manson family, the Zodiac killer, the Zebra killer, all linked to the same network of the occult, of the military, of the Defense Department. So maybe they'll get on this story.
Well, one of the things I think is significant is, a lot is made out of the satanic aspects of it, but I think perhaps more significant is the mind control aspect.
And the military.
Exactly.
Yeah, see, I've had these books like The Spear of Destiny and Destiny Sklar's book. I've had these books on the satanic, the Hitler role, but the importance of the satanic goes into the mindset of the attraction of people for Adolf Hitler, that Rudolf Hess was the one who, and he was the genius behind Hitler. He shared a cell and helped write Mein Kampf, and he used the astrologers, and he was part of the Thule Society and the early societies that were satanic. The origin of the power of these people comes from the knighthood, and when I read you some of the descriptions of their rituals or so forth, it is political, and it involves the military, because he is a professor, teaches at Golden Gate, or did, and has taught political science and got his doctor's degrees, 2 of them. He's supposed to have an IQ of 155, 2 doctor's degrees in politics, and his expertise in Southeast Asia was mind control.
The other thing is, about 2 years ago, there were all these stories about missing kids.
Oh, yes.
Their pictures on milk cartons.
Oh, yes.
And stuff.
Uh-huh.
And I could never... the figures, when I read into it, were enormous.
I know, tremendous.
Thousands of kids disappearing per year.
That's right.
And I couldn't figure out, where they were going.
Well, luckily I saved those articles. I saved things on satanic murders, and Barbara and I are cleaning out and separating my files now on ways to kill, who was killed, various kinds of murders that I think will be invaluable for the years to come. And I have a lot of satanic murders and missing children. And I've saved them through the years because I knew there were these connections.
Then in the weeks after this broadcast, Mae Brussell thought her show was being sabotaged. Callers had difficulty getting through to reach her, and a strange clicking noise was constantly heard over the line, which she thought was the phone being tapped.
Hello?
Hello, Mae.
Yes.
Do you think all the phone calls to you are tapped?
I don't know the technology. I'm not in the phone business. I don't know. There's certainly the capability to do anything they want, and the station has talk shows that don't have these problems, and I'm using the same board and the same material.
How many people do you think are being monitored by the CIA?
How many people are being monitored? Now, that's
Right.
a silly question. How would I know?
I don't know.
Because, you see, you're talking about the CIA, right?
Right.
Well, there's a Defense Intelligence Agency that Aquino worked for. There's the National Security Agency. That's their budget is 10 times larger, the DIA, than the CIA. There's the National Security Council with their secret team, that cabal inside. There's Air Force Intelligence, okay? There is the Army Intelligence.
What?
There is the Office of Navy Intelligence, ONI. Okay, so you take away the CIA, you've got 6 branches that are budgeted 10, 20 times larger than the CIA just for this kind of work. People think CIA is the only agency going. Yeah.
Well,
She continued investigating and reporting on the Presidio case for a few weeks, and one of the more amazing things she reported on was the almost unbelievable fact that Michael Aquino owned a building in San Francisco that he rented out to an organization that handled child abuse claims.
Now, getting to a local matter in California, this is an article from Marin Independent. Marin County is above San Francisco, across the Bay Bridge. The Independent had an article December the 6th, 1987, that I didn't have time to share with you, but I don't want to pass it up any longer. The article says, satanic church members, including a key figure in the Presidio child molestation case, have been linked to satanic cult activities in Marin County. Aquino owns property in Marin County and in Sonoma County, including a historic San Rafael house that he inherited from his mother. His mother's name was Betty Ford Aquino. I thought that was quite an interesting coincidence because of all the mysterious and horrible things about Gerald Ford that I followed and noticed. And he was adopted. Gerald Ford was adopted and saw allegedly his natural father when he was 8 years old. But anyway, let's chalk this up to a funny coincidence. The Betty Ford Aquino, mother of the founder of the Church of Set. And she also was a high priestess. She was a temple priestess. Ford Aquino died of cancer in San Francisco in 1985. She was a temple priestess. She left her son $3.2 million estate. Now, among her property is a house on 828 Mission Street in San Rafael. That's leased to Project Care for Children, and another office leases part of that group, the Marin County Child Abuse Council. Now, Michael Aquino owns property that he rents to Project Care for Children and the Marin County Child Abuse Center. Aquino also inherited a professional building in San Rafael at 914 Mission Street and another professional building at 1212 4th Street in Santa Rosa. And according to this article, the relationship of him to the property, those other properties, has to do with Lilith and her brother. And the article says officials for Project Care for Children expressed shock that the building's owner was linked to the Presidio molestation case. Their center, they said, has nothing to do with Michael Aquino. It's a private, nonprofit organization that helps parents find daycare. And I remember a lot of evidence of problems when children found help in finding daycare and what happened to them afterwards. In fact, the whole purpose of that meeting, enough that Dr. and Mrs. Polecat in San Francisco, is because they went through an established bureau and tried to find daycare for their little boy, and then found that he was a victim of child abuse or molestation. So that getting daycare for people doesn't mean that's the end of the problem. The article says this is the most ironic and bizarre twist of fate.
So it's obviously very incredible that one of the main people involved in all of this owned the building that housed an organization that handled complaints about child abuse. Really seems like this organization could have been like a front, and it could have been used to monitor anyone who might have come forward and expose what was going on. And after this, things started getting pretty intense. Mae Brussell talked of how someone had called her and threatened to kill her, and she thought the threat was serious enough that she would be forced to end her show.
World Watchers has been played on KPFK in Los Angeles for the past 4 months, at least 4 months. David Emery's program is down there too, Radio Free America. And I got a telephone call this week when the program was just about over. It's played from midnight till 1 in the morning. A gentleman, I can't call him a gentleman, a person called and said, this is the last time this material is ever going to be on the air. I'm going to hop a plane and come up there and blow your head off. And there won't be a trace of you. You will be like the missing people you talk about. And I do talk about missing people. This is not what you think America is. It is similar to Argentina, El Salvador, Chile, because those death squads were formed by our intelligence community. And as I said last week, or many, many weeks for a long time, the most valuable part of my research, I think, is to have compiled the missing or the murdered that people mistook for, they did die of cancer, but for accidents, early untimely deaths, apparent heart attacks, aneurysms, and all kinds of ways that the intelligence community has bragged about the way they kill people, including blowing their head off. I've been in touch with the local sheriff, and I called the FBI. It's not anything the FBI can do because there isn't a single trace of who this person is. And, of course, you have to take certain measures of security.
The next week, she talked of how someone had entered her house when she was gone and had left her a threatening note with a piece of a jigsaw puzzle next to her phone. Because of this, she'd installed a new security system in her house, and she talked of how people close to her who she worked with were getting death threats also.
There's a lot of good books out. There's a lot of good articles. They don't make the connections. It's the connections that are dangerous. And the most dangerous thing I'm doing is talking about the connection of Satanism to the Defense Department, to the military. That is the thing that makes me a threat. Because when I learned and caught on how high up these Michael Aquinos and Oliver Norths and these types are in the rituals in Himmler's castle, it put another piece of my puzzle together. And speaking of pieces of puzzle, last week when I was at Kazoo and I came home, there was also a piece of a puzzle left next to my telephone. Somebody entered my house, let me know that they could get in when I'm away, and that has an interesting long story, and I could write down for you all the things that preceded the telephone call. I was aware of 7 different things that were happening before the phone call and incidents that were happening to friends and people around me that I don't think they want me to discuss on the air. I'm not isolated in this sense, but they're getting the heat also. So I have to think in terms of security, and I'm increasing that, and maybe I tested my luck too long. A gentleman who was at the house working on the security system said that 5 years ago, the CIA was talking about blowing me away, and he worked with the intelligence. He didn't know how I was around 5 years that they talked about this. And so I've pushed my luck for 17 years on the air. For those of you who didn't hear the program last week, that was because of a call I got saying that my head would be blown off and there wouldn't be a trace of me. I would be missing like those people I talk about in Argentina and Chile. And since this past week, 2 other people in Los Angeles have gotten calls. They're active with the Christic Institute. And a gentleman who listened to KPFK down there and knew what was happening called me. I've never met him. And he got the same message: you're going to stop immediately what you're doing. You're not going to do it anymore, and we're going to blow you up. We're coming down to blow you away. They're coming up here and going down there. And I realized when he called me that this could keep mushrooming, and indeed another third person got a call.
So anyway, with all of this stuff going on, the death threats, the people breaking into her house, she decided to end her show for good because she was scared for her life. And for her final show, she held a fundraiser for the station that had been broadcasting her show. And she talked about another time when she'd been scared for her life when a suspicious person started working at a theater she'd been volunteering at, and she thought he might have been sent there to kill her.
They've been working hard at the station to raise funds, so maybe they'd like to say a few words.
We'd first like to say how angered and how saddened we are at the news that's been happening with Mae. And while we can never fill her shoes, we'll be doing our best to fill this 2 hours with some information that will still somehow grab us all together and educate us so we're not so isolated from one another. And we hope that this gets resolved shortly so we can have Mae back on the air. There will always be a spot for you here, Mae. You've been a delightful and valuable person to too many of us out there to have this be terminated by some fellow out there who has a weird sense of values.
Or a team.
A team, yeah.
Call it the West Point.
The West Point, yeah.
Okay.
Because we've been proud to have you be the station that you've been broadcasting out of, and I feel the way you do. I'm surprised it hasn't happened before now. I'm pleased and surprised, and hopefully nothing will happen. But I think it's wise of you. You always have to trust your own intuition, and you have to trust your own gut feeling. And if you feel that this is serious, then that's all you can do.
Well, it's more than an intuition. You get a telephone call that says we're going to blast your way. It's more than an intuition. I did go off the air when I was at KLRB because there was somebody hanging around the Barnyard Theater that was in that complex at the time. And he was managing the theater, and I knew the man's nephew, and he told me his uncle worked for the intelligence community. And this told me about the mysterious things he did, and the uncle was going to work at the Barnyard Theater along with his brother. And I felt, hey, I'm coming in at night, and not only did I feel something, but everyone around me, several people died, and people's apartments and homes were broken into, and the typewriters had Lee Harvey Oswald and Sirhan Sirhan, and something was happening to all these people around me. And with this character there, I wasn't going to go in at 10 at night and leave at 11, and et cetera. And I went off the air and continued the tapes by subscription. And in that interim, he wrote a book called Blow Away. I can tell you his name. It was Selmayr. He was in the Broadway play Tiny Alice. He's an actor. And he tells about blowing heads off and putting people on meat hooks. And he worked for CIA and was a hired assassin. In between, he was a Broadway actor and was wanted to work at the Barnyard. So this is, it's too much. It's not just an intuition.
And this is such an insane story. This guy that she was talking about was named Dean Selmayr. He was a real person and everything. And I think I'll do my next video on him, so I won't go into him too much here. But basically, he was a professional actor. He'd appeared in Hollywood movies and a bunch of plays. And he wrote a book in 1979 named Blow Away about how he was really an assassin for the CIA. And his career as an actor was just a cover. It is a wild, wild story. Like I said, I think this will be my next video. But Mae Brussell talked in that clip about how a decade earlier, she volunteered at a local theater and Dean Selmayr was hired to act in a play at this theater. And she was scared for her life because she sometimes spent late nights alone at this theater. So that broadcast that I just played was her final broadcast. It happened in March of 1988. Mae Brussell would still give a few interviews and she'd send out taped shows to subscribers, but she didn't broadcast any more shows after that. And then on October 3rd, 1988, she died of a fast-acting cancer, and her doctor told family members that he'd never seen a cancer grow as quickly as Mae Brussell's. Obviously, that's very suspicious timing with her death happening pretty shortly after she started talking about the Presidio scandal. And ironically, one of the things she talked about a lot on her shows was cancers that people could be given or injected with. She claimed that Jack Ruby, who shot Lee Harvey Oswald, had been given one of these fast-acting cancers. And Martha Mitchell, who was involved in Watergate, she was also given something like this, and she died very quickly. So many people have speculated that this same cancer that Mae Brussell had talked about on her broadcast over the years, that was what was given to her. Now, another strange mystery with her death has to do with the house that was just down the street from hers. Her daughter describes in this interview here how their family always considered the house very suspicious. It was owned by a man who worked in military intelligence, and he rented the house out to a family from a local military base in the early 1970s. So that was right when Mae Brussell started to make a name for herself. And then that family abruptly moved out one night without telling anyone. They just basically vanished, and a new family moved into the house. They were all dressed as hippies, but they arrived with their stuff in a military truck. So Mae Brussell suspected that they might be spies or plants, and she also recognized members of the Manson family who would come and visit that house. But then very suspiciously, this house that was right across the street from Mae Brussell's, it caught fire and it burnt to the ground on October 2nd, 1988, which was the day before Mae Brussell died. So there's been speculation that this fire was some sort of cleanup operation to destroy evidence of whatever the people in this house were doing, whether it was spying on Mae Brussell or being responsible for her death or something like that. Then, after Mae Brussell's death, there was an attempt to open up a Mae Brussell Research Center with all of her research material that anyone could go and use. It's tough to really find out what happened with this. It does seem like there was something open at one point after her death, but then they ran out of funding and closed. And to this day, it's kind of a mystery about what has happened to all these books and articles and research materials that Mae Brussell had accumulated over the years. So that's the story of Mae Brussell's Suspicious Death. I definitely recommend checking her stuff out. Personally, I just love listening to her. I don't think she's right all of the time, and I definitely don't agree with her all the time, but she makes a lot of really interesting connections, and her research into a lot of these topics was just so extensive and so good. She was definitely biased, and I will say she does have a pretty suspicious background. Her maiden name was Magnin, and she was from a very prominent Jewish family. Her great grandfather founded the I. Magnin department store chain in California, which was like the most glamorous department store chain on the West Coast in the 1960s and 70s. Her great uncle was Joseph Magnin, who founded the Joseph Magnin department store chain, and her father was Edgar Magnin, who was a very prominent rabbi in Los Angeles. Edgar Magnin was known as the rabbi to the stars because he was so close to a lot of people in Hollywood, and he was described as one of the most prominent Jewish leaders in America at the time. So for Mae Magnin Brussel to have a father like that and come from a background like this is definitely pretty suspicious. I don't think that discredits her completely. Like I said, I just love listening to her, and so much of her research really is just mind blowing. But she definitely had her biases. She was ultra liberal, and she did criticize Israel quite a bit. She wasn't like some hardcore Israel is always right type person, but she basically chalks up the world's problems to this underground network of Nazis that she always talks about on her broadcast, which she does make a really convincing argument, and she's probably right that this network existed at the time and probably still exists. But she does have a tendency to just really focus on this group and ignore the other groups that have a lot of power and influence around the world also. So I really do just love her work. I definitely recommend checking her out. I have referenced her in so many of my videos, and I'll probably continue to reference her in a lot of videos to come. With that said, I'll end up here with a big shout out to the subscribers here on YouTube and the supporters on Patreon. Thanks so much for your support. I truly greatly appreciate it so very much. So thanks again. Hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you soon with another one.